To be number one in America is a dream for many musicians, but Robert Smith has never chased that kind of fame. In fact, he openly admits that he hates the idea of chasing numbers, and he's never been shy about saying he also hates death, and at times, even the people who cross him. When the king of Goth locks horns with his rivals, the sparks are unforgettable. Today, we're diving deep into the shadowy world of Robert Smith's most explosive feuds. Smith himself has often said he knows plenty of people dislike him, especially record company executives, who can't understand why he doesn't actively try to sell more records. But the legendary frontman of The Cure is far more than the messy hair and black lipstick he's famous for. Behind the brooding songs and dramatic stage presence is a man unafraid to speak his mind, and his brutally honest opinions have led to some of the most notorious rivalries in alternative music history. Robert Smith built The Cure into one of the most influential bands of all time, but he never hesitated to criticize other musicians. Sources over the years claim he could be cuttingly honest, so much so that entire backstage brawls, public insults, and decades-long grudges followed in his wake. Some of these conflicts reportedly became so heated that bands refused to share festival bills with The Cure. Music insiders have whispered about these feuds for decades, and today we're finally revealing the truth about Robert Smith's most hated enemies. And wait until you hear which massive band lands at number one. Grab your black eyeliner. This isn't just about musical disagreements. These are personal vendettas that allegedly ripped the alternative scene apart. 1. Depeche Mode. Finally, taking the number one spot is the feud that shocked even industry veterans, Depeche Mode. In the early 1980s, The Cure and Depeche Mode were friendly peers in the underground scene. But tension rose as Depeche Mode leaned more heavily into electronic instrumentation. Smith allegedly felt their shift toward synthesizers was an attack on the very soul of alternative rock. Studio insiders say he would leave recording sessions if Depeche Mode tracks were even mentioned. During a European festival tour in the mid-1980s, things reportedly came to a head when Smith and frontman Dave Gahan had a heated argument about the future of music. Smith accused Depeche Mode of killing real emotion with machines, while Gahan fired back that The Cure were stuck in the past and afraid of innovation. The rivalry soon became public. Journalists noted that Smith refused joint photo opportunities, and the tour managers had to schedule separate arrival times to avoid confrontations. Insiders described this as the feud that hurt Smith the most, because it represented, at least to him, everything wrong with modern music's drift away from raw emotion. 2. U2 ate number 2 is perhaps the most shocking feud of all. U2. Robert Smith's dislike for Bono and company reportedly ran far deeper than casual criticism. The trouble began in the early 1980s when both bands were climbing the charts. Smith allegedly loathed Bono's onstage political preaching, claiming U2 used social causes to disguise a lack of true artistic vision. While U2 embraced massive stadium tours and corporate sponsorships, The Cure remained committed to their underground roots. Former crew members recall Smith mocking U2's giant video screens and elaborate light shows, saying real musicians didn't need circus tricks to connect with an audience. When U2 began collecting Grammy Awards, Smith reportedly declared that such honors were meaningless if they rewarded what he saw as corporate rock masquerading as rebellion. 3. Joy Division, New Order. The number 3 rivalry defined the post-punk era itself. Robert Smith reportedly viewed Joy Division, and later New Order, as his fiercest artistic competition. Both bands were creating dark, atmospheric music in the late 1970s, and Smith allegedly felt Joy Division was stealing The Cure's thunder. He supposedly accused the late Ian Curtis of mimicking his vocal style and emotional approach. After Curtis's tragic death in 1980, the competition shifted when the remaining members formed New Order and embraced electronic sounds. Smith reportedly bristled at the praise New Order received for innovation, while critics began labeling The Cure old-fashioned. Backstage sources claim he would avoid New Order members at festivals and even change radio stations if their songs came on. For Smith, this was more than rivalry. It was a clash over the future of alternative music. 4. Siouxsie and the Banshees. At number 4 is a betrayal that cut Robert Smith to the core. Before their feud, Smith actually played guitar for Siouxsie and the Banshees in 1979 during a difficult period for the band. He helped record key early material, but sources say Siouxsie Sue treated him as a temporary hired hand rather than a creative partner. When Smith left to focus on The Cure, Siouxsie allegedly made harsh public remarks, calling him unreliable and implying he couldn't handle the pressure of a professional band. Smith reportedly never forgave her for those comments. Through the 1980s, both sides traded subtle jabs in interviews. Smith is said to have claimed that Siouxsie merely copied punk bands but added makeup, while Siouxsie allegedly dismissed The Cure as amateur hour. Former colleagues describe this rift as intensely personal and lasting for decades. 5. The Smiths, coming in at number 5, is a clash that split the entire alternative scene, Robert Smith versus the Smiths, and especially their frontman Morrissey. Both bands were known for melancholy lyrics and moody aesthetics, but insiders say the two singers saw each other as competitors, fighting for the same crown. Early music critics often compared The Cure to the Smiths, and some even labeled Robert Smith the poor man's Morrissey, a description he allegedly despised. Smith is said to have told friends that Morrissey was merely copying The Cure's formula and making it more pretentious, while Morrissey supposedly dismissed The Cure's music as theatrical nonsense. Throughout the mid-1980s, neither frontman would give interviews if the other was mentioned. At festivals, they demanded separate dressing areas and carefully staggered set times to avoid crossing paths. Former band members confirmed this rivalry was bitter and deeply personal, a battle over who could claim the title of Britain's saddest band. 6. Duran Duran, taking the number 6 spot, is one of the most surprising rivalries of the 1980s. Robert Smith reportedly could not stand Duran Duran or anything they represented, while The Cure were crafting dark, emotionally charged masterpieces. Duran Duran were, in Smith's alleged view, churning out what he once called plastic pop for teenagers. The feud is said to have started in the early 1980s, when both bands were exploding in popularity. Industry insiders recall that Smith would roll his eyes whenever Duran Duran came on the radio. He allegedly told friends their success proved how shallow the music business had become. As the two bands began appearing at the same festivals, Smith supposedly avoided the Duran Duran members entirely, refusing photographs, ducking backstage greetings, and even leaving venues early if they were scheduled to perform. The breaking point reportedly came when a journalist asked Smith about Duran Duran's influence on New Wave. His response was, according to witnesses, brutally harsh. He called their music soulless garbage for people who don't understand real emotion. This icy rivalry reportedly stretched across the entire decade, with Smith never softening his stance.